so many of us do not honor the needs of the luteal phase, and then we end up on our period feeling like totally depleted, totally exhausted, and completely out of balance. And then we blame it on our period, but it actually started like 2 weeks ago. Hey, Mama, welcome to the Thrive Mama podcast. I'm Martina, certified nutrition consultant and holistic health coach, and a mama of two, and I'm so glad you're here. I'm here to help busy moms unlock their energy, balance their hormones, and break out of burnout using nutrition as a foundation. So on this podcast, we dive into actionable strategies on nutrition, nervous system healing, and aligning with your cycles with a healthy dose of relatable motherhood thrown in, all designed to help you move past surviving to actually thrive in motherhood. Let's do this. Hello, Mama. Welcome back. I am coming at you a little bit late with this episode because here in my house, we have been through 10 days of the flu, strep, ear infections, this seemingly never-ending cycle. We've had a fractured elbow, we've had a broken dishwasher. It's been a time. And I'm hearing from other people that it is not just us. So if February has felt like the longest year of your life, and if it's all really piling up for you, I see you, I'm in it with you. We are kind of just coming out of the other side of this like thick haze. And I'm really excited to connect with you today. I'm just really happy to be back into a flow of seemingly, normal life and normal things. Now, today is our first Q&A episode that we've ever done, and I'm really excited. I love listening to Q&A episodes, and I really like designing this space to be most applicable and helpful to all of you. And what better way to do that than to actually make space to answer your direct questions? So I have pulled these questions from my Instagram community and from the form that is located below this episode. There is a space for you to submit your questions to be answered live on the podcast. And I intend to do these Q&A episodes at least once a month. And if you want your question answered, this is a great place to do it. So check out the form below so you can submit your question for the next episode. But I have 4 beautiful listener questions that we're going to be diving into today. Starting with this question from Elizabeth over on Instagram. She says, "Hi, Martina. I am trying to conceive." Congratulations. "And I would love to hear about supplements and anything else that can help with this process." Oh, Elizabeth, this is such a good question and really common. So I'm glad you asked this because I'm sure there's lots of listeners who are either preparing for or moving through a similar experience and really want as much support as they can get. And there is a lot to say on this, and it actually is quite personal to each person's situation. But there is so much we can do for our fertility with just nutrition, lifestyle, supplements. It makes such a huge difference. What I always tell people is, your body needs to feel safe in order to get and stay pregnant. If the body does not feel safe in any way, it's going to interpret that as my environment is not safe for a baby, right? It's not safe to procreate the human race. And so it's going to down-regulate fertility opportunities on purpose to protect you and your future offspring. So this makes great sense biologically. The problem is for a lot of us, that lack of safety is coming from hormonal imbalances. It's coming from stress or environmental toxins or all sorts of different things that really get in the way of us starting our family on the timeline that we want. So everything I'm going to talk you through right now, the few tips and strategies I'm going to share with you, are really all about finding safety in the body, helping the body feel safe and balanced. So first, you're probably already doing this. Most people who are trying to conceive are, but tracking your cycle is really, really important here. And when I say tracking your cycle, I don't just mean tracking the first day that you bleed in a period app. And I don't mean counting ovulation on day 14 and calling it good. I really mean tracking your main fertility markers so that you can get to know your own unique cycle. And I want to share a story from my own journey of trying to conceive my babies and how tracking actually illuminated for me an imbalance that I didn't know that I had. So I am in a same-sex marriage and we conceived our babies at home using donor sperm, which means my cycle had to be like super dialed in, really, really clear where my fertility window was, because we had a very small window where this frozen donor sperm was going to be viable. So I got really detailed with tracking my basal body temperature, tracking my cervical mucus, tracking using test strips that were tracking ovulation hormones. And what it showed me is that even though my cycle was very regular, 28 days long, I wasn't ovulating until day 17, 18, or 19. So that's much later than average. The average person's ovulating around day 13 to 15. And what that showed me is if I wasn't ovulating until day like 19, I only had about 9 or 10 days of my luteal phase of the period between your ovulation and the next bleed. And that's not long enough for the fertilized egg to actually implant in your lining and start to grow. So what was happening was my luteal phase was very short, and I wouldn't have known that if I wasn't tracking my ovulation markers. I would have just assumed my cycle was normal. And because I knew that, I was able to support progesterone, extra progesterone production, and was able to get pregnant after just a couple of tries because I could support the luteal phase in lengthening and allowing time for the egg to fertilize and implant. So just an example of how really getting to know your personal cycle is super, super important here. So track all 4 phases, really get serious about tracking your ovulation markers and knowing when your fertility window is in your ovulation window. I do also recommend when it comes to tracking your cycle, getting regular lab work, especially if you're preparing to get pregnant. So I really do recommend a full hormonal panel, checking your vitamin D, and then getting a full thyroid panel as well. Those are the 3 things you can ask your doctor for: full hormonal panel, vitamin D, full thyroid panel, and that will give you a lot of information on what your body potentially needs to support balance and support a pregnancy. Okay, so let's say you've tracked your cycle, you like are figuring out your personal imbalances, you're on it. Couple of supplements that are really helpful for trying to conceive. Since you asked specifically about supplements, let's start there. Number 1, vitamin D. And I do recommend this for both partners involved, because sperm is half the equation here, right? This isn't all on a woman to make her body as fertile as possible. About 50 to 60% of pregnancies that do not implant are due to the sperm. This isn't just on you. So having healthy sperm in the equation is hugely, hugely important and something we don't talk about enough. So vitamin D for both partners, I would say like 5,000 IU every day for both partners would be like a minimum. But get your vitamin D tested and see if maybe you even need more. The other supplement that's really, really helpful is one called CoQ10. So C-O-Q, and then 10 is what it's called, CoQ enzyme 10. This is a really, really powerful antioxidant, and it protects egg health. So a lot of times if we're trying to get pregnant and that cycle didn't work, it is often because of some chromosomal imbalance in the egg or the sperm itself. And this is a totally normal and natural process of selecting the healthiest egg, right? Not every egg is chromosomally perfect, super normal, right? We don't expect that to happen. And CoQ10 can help protect the eggs from damage, from environmental toxins, from oxidation, from all sorts of things that can cause an imbalance in the egg itself and cause it not to be a viable pregnancy. So CoQ10 specifically for the woman, for the one with the eggs in your body, and vitamin D for both partners is something I would recommend. There's also a couple of herbs that I love using when we're trying to conceive. And I would recommend starting these at least 3 to 6 months before you're hoping to be pregnant. Or if you're actively trying right now, just go ahead and add them in. Number 1 is maca, M-A-C-A, maca. This is a powdered root vegetable that really acts like an herb. It's super potent and it is considered an adaptogen because of how it interacts in the body. And it is an amazing herb for fertility and progesterone support. And without getting too technical with you here, progesterone is really the queen hormone of pregnancy. We need plenty of progesterone in the luteal phase, the second half of your cycle, so that the egg can implant and grow. And we need plenty of progesterone in the first trimester so that the egg can continue to grow and thrive. So maca is really helpful to find balance in your cycle. It's one of the main tools I used when I discovered my luteal phase was short and my progesterone was low, which is a super common imbalance that I see in folks. And maca also has fertility benefits for men. So just like the vitamin D, I recommend both partners take maca in order to support the reproductive health of both of us. And then the other herb that is really helpful is called Vitex. It's also called chaste tree berry. That's the same herb. And Vitex is another really powerful progesterone support and hormone balancer, really good for fertility and helping to support balanced cycles. So especially if your cycle does seem a little irregular, if you have symptoms of low progesterone, Vitex is another really, really good one to add in. Now, for both of these herbs, I do recommend pausing as soon as you get pregnant. So you don't want to continue taking maca and Vitex throughout your pregnancy, but in the trying to conceive phase, really, really supportive. And then a couple of foods that I would consider sort of fertility superfoods that are really, really nutrient dense and help support healthy hormones and healthy eggs are leafy green vegetables, really powerful. I would say like 1 to 2 servings a day of leafy green vegetables. Eggs are a fertility superfood, such good omega-3s, anti-inflammatories, vitamin D. So getting in eggs most days, leafy greens every day. Nuts and seeds are also great to increase while you're trying to conceive. So I would say a variety of nuts and seeds are going to be really helpful, but especially nuts and seeds like Brazil nuts, pumpkin seeds, chia seeds, hemp seeds, things like that are going to be really great for finding balance and health and vitality in your reproductive cycle. And then 2 others I just want to mention. Green tea has been shown to improve fertility markers overall, and it also protects our egg health. So switching, especially if you're an avid coffee drinker, trying to decrease and get more green tea into your day is going to be great. And the last one I'll throw out there is one most of us aren't eating much of, and that is liver. Liver is an amazing fertility superfood, very high in iron, which is so important for fertility and for early pregnancy, very high in protein, very high in vitamin A. It's just a like nutrient dense powerhouse. So trying to get in liver like once a week would be a great goal. It's so nutrient dense. This isn't something you need every day, but trying to get it in regularly is going to be great. So those are a few foods and supplements that I recommend on your trying to conceive journey. The other 2 things I just have to mention because they're so important are number 1, your circadian rhythm. This is the light environment of your life. The amount of artificial light and natural sunlight that you're getting in balance throughout the day. You can do some research into circadian rhythm. I want to do a whole podcast episode on it soon because it's so important and it has a huge impact on our hormones. The sort of sunlight exposure we get throughout the day has a direct impact on how our sex hormones are produced. So if we're inside most of the day, if we're looking at phones and screens most of the day, if we're using indoor artificial light, all of these things are impacting your fertility markers. So looking into light environment and circadian rhythm. And then the other thing I just have to mention is stress. And I'm sure you've heard it before. It's just too important to leave out of this conversation. So this is, if I had to pick one thing that would transform everyone's journey trying to conceive, it would be healing your nervous system and stress management. Back to what I said about safety. If the body doesn't feel safe, it's not going to grow a baby. And stress of any kind is having a huge impact on the safety markers and balance in your body. So really getting serious, healing your nervous system, stress management, making it like your full-time job is going to make a huge difference in your journey. We've all heard stories of people who were trying to conceive forever, and then when they gave up and stopped worrying about it, then they magically got pregnant. It's stress. Stress plays a role. Okay. So getting really serious about stress and light environment. So there's so much more we could say about this, but it's such a beautiful question. And I hope that gives you somewhere to start with your foods, with your supplements, and with some of your lifestyle factors. And I'm just wishing you all the best on this journey. I know it can be an exciting and also emotional time. So just sending you so much love and support. And please let me know if you have any follow-up questions about any of that. This next question is from Anonymous. And Anonymous asks, I hear you talk about coffee's impact on our energy, but without my after lunch coffee, I'm just totally dragging throughout the day. How do I get out of this afternoon slump and this coffee drinking habit in the afternoon? Oh my gosh, Anonymous, I feel you. I see you. This is so normal, and I'm really glad you asked this question. So you're absolutely right that I talk a lot about coffee and highly caffeinated beverages, their impact on our energy and stress overall. And so many of us experience this after lunch energy slump. And it's so natural to reach for concentrated caffeine to get us through the afternoon and evening. So I have a few strategies for you to start experimenting with. This often is a bit of an individual trial and error process because your own cycles of energy are going to respond to different things. You might have your own unique gaps that you need to look at. So I encourage you to experiment and really see what's going to make the difference for you and your stable energy through the afternoon. But typically, what afternoon energy slumps tell me, a couple of things. Number one is there's often some blood sugar imbalances at play here. We often see as our blood sugar crashes in the afternoon, a huge energy slump that goes with it. And there's a lot of reasons our blood sugar could be crashing in the afternoon, but that is a big area that I start by focusing. Another thing that this often tells me is that we're not fueling the way we need to in the morning. If you feel like you need caffeine to get through your afternoon, likely you need to look 3 to 5 hours before the energy slump and see what's going on and see what we can shift to fuel up so that when we get to the afternoon, we have the reserves that we really need. So I encourage people first to look at breakfast, like really get serious about nourishing breakfasts within 1 to 2 hours of waking up. We're talking protein before your coffee in the morning. We're talking 30 grams of protein plus some good fiber, fruits, vegetables at breakfast every day. And once we can get that dialed in within 1 to 2 hours of waking up, we often see a big improvement in the stability of our blood sugar through the rest of the day. So, number one, look at breakfast. Are we waiting too long to eat? Are we drinking caffeine first thing when we wake up? Are we waiting till like 11 a.m. to drink water? Are we eating, toast or like 2 eggs and calling it good, right? Like really get serious about 30 grams of protein, fruits and vegetables at breakfast every day. The other piece that can really make a difference here is hydration. I see this often. We don't hydrate first thing in the morning and sort of start drinking water around the middle of the day, and then we're playing catch up. And this plays a huge, huge role in our energy in the afternoon. So I recommend first thing when you wake up, we're starting our day by drinking something hydrating. I personally love to start with a big mason jar of fresh lemon juice mixed with warm water and about a quarter teaspoon of high quality sea salt. So this is like a little mini electrolyte drink that is super hydrating, great for my digestion, and starts my day with like 24 ounces of water before I put anything else in my body. And I drink that throughout the first hour that I'm awake before I switch into breakfast. So whatever that looks like for you, getting in good hydration, potentially some electrolytes in the morning. I will say this often is also a sign of nervous system dysregulation in the morning. So if we jump into reactive mode first thing, if we are in like hyper overdrive, if we're working intensely all morning, if we're parenting and multitasking and overstimulated all morning, usually around lunchtime is when we start feeling the depletion of those stress cycles. So if you feel like, man, my breakfast is like dialed in pretty well, look at your stress next and see, am I spending my morning in like tense overdrive? And then, of course, I'm depleted by 1 p.m. And then start focusing on nervous system healing throughout the flow of your mornings. Now, let's say you do get to the afternoon and you're feeling the energy slump. You feel like you need a little something, but you don't want to keep relying on like a second cup of coffee for your day. I would say taking a sunshine break, maybe a walk after lunch outside before you jump back into work or parenting, whatever it is. Sunshine breaks middle of the day are going to be really energizing. So your natural blue light exposure from sunlight is very high around the middle of the day when the sun is brightest and highest in the sky. And that is stimulating in the body a signal that, hey, it's the middle of the day. Like it's time to be awake, time to be stimulated in a natural, balanced kind of way. So getting some sunshine after lunch. If I have an energy slump in the middle of my day, this is my go-to thing. Get outside, spend 10 minutes in the sun, and it totally transforms how my body feels. So try that as a reactive strategy if you're feeling the energy slump. And then I would say you can really experiment with other energizing drink options after lunch that are not coffee and are not as like highly stimulating. One option that I love for people is matcha green tea powder. Matcha does still have caffeine, so it's a great energy support if you really need an extra boost, but it's also metabolized in a really balanced, nourishing way, especially when compared to coffee. Coffee is quite intense in its swings of energy and its impact on our adrenals and on our stress. Matcha has a lot of benefits and does not have the same intense swings. So matcha would be a really great switch to play around with. Some uncaffeinated options you can play with are electrolytes after lunch, some kind of mineral rich drink could be really energizing. And then maca, M-A-C-A, not the matcha, but maca, the herb that I mentioned as we were talking through trying to conceive, is also a really good non-caffeinated option. Maca is really supportive for our cellular energy. It's actually used by athletes, often professional athletes, as a endurance and like stamina support. And if you're thinking about most moms' days, endurance and stamina are like it, right? That's like what we need. So maca is a really great option for afternoon support. You can make yourself like an after lunch maca latte, maca smoothie, and sip on throughout the afternoon. And that can really give us the energy boost without the stimulation and the caffeine. So those are the places I would start experimenting. And let me know if you have any follow-up questions or if you find something that works for you to switch out of that after lunch coffee. I would love to hear it.
Hey there, Mama. Quick question. Are you feeling drained, overwhelmed, or just ready for more actionable strategies for nourishing yourself in motherhood? Well, I've got a special gift for you. I am opening the waitlist for my Thrive Mama group coaching program. And when you join the priority waitlist, I am gifting you 5 free lessons straight from inside the program itself, delivered right to your inbox. So these 5 lessons are packed with simple, actionable strategies to help you transform the way that you think about energy and stress and focus on the highest impact areas to start unlocking more energy, balancing your blood sugar, balancing your hormones, and healing your nervous system. And there are free lessons in here on exactly how energy and stress are connected, how food plays a role into all of this, how to know if you're actually eating enough food, which, hint, hint, you're probably not, and how to snack in a way that actually supports your energy instead of draining you more. And the best part is you will also get early access to Thrive Mama when the doors open, and there'll be a special waitlist discount for you. Plus, you get a sneak peek into the transformation and the resources that would be waiting for you inside of Thrive Mama. So, what are you waiting for? Click the link below the show notes, join the priority waitlist, and start your thriving era today.
And then our last question today is coming from Cindy. Cindy asks, what can I eat on my period to feel better, be less moody, and feel less exhausted? Oh my gosh, Cindy, this is so good. Let's get into it. So you're asking specifically about what to eat while you're on your period. And I am going to answer that question, but I'm going to be annoying and start with something else, which is your moods and your energy on your period, like during the bleed itself, actually are a result of what started like 2 weeks ago. So I want to back up about 2 weeks and start with the luteal phase. The luteal phase is the part of your cycle right after you ovulate up until you start bleeding. And this really is what makes or breaks your experience on the bleed itself. So many of us do not honor the needs of the luteal phase, and then we end up on our period feeling like totally depleted, totally exhausted, and completely out of balance. And then we blame it on our period, but it actually started like 2 weeks ago. So, a couple of luteal phase tips. Number one, caffeine and alcohol we're just really sensitive to them in the luteal phase. So, we might be able to tolerate caffeine and alcohol a lot easier in the first half of our cycle. But in the second half of our cycle, it's really best to be mindful and moderate with how much caffeine and alcohol we're drinking. We're really going to feel that in our liver, especially because what's happening here is we are trying to detox, metabolize all of the high levels of hormones from the first half of our cycle. We had pretty high levels of estrogen and testosterone. Then we ovulated and those things peaked really high. Now we're in a place where we're detoxifying those used hormones, we're metabolizing them. That happens through the liver. And if the liver is really busy dealing with alcohol and caffeine metabolism, that is definitely going to impact our hormones. So, really going light on the liver and letting it focus on balancing out our hormones and not metabolizing tons of caffeine and alcohol throughout these couple of weeks before our cycle. Number two, our blood sugar is also really important here. The liver stores extra sugar for us to use, extra glucose. And if our blood sugar is way out of whack, the liver is involved in releasing stored sugar to balance things out. And we're very sensitive to carbohydrates during the luteal phase. So it's really important to be ultra mindful of our blood sugar during this phase, both to keep things balanced and to let the liver have some space to focus on metabolizing our hormones. So really focusing on more protein and healthy fats during this phase, limiting refined carbs and sugar especially, but even healthy carbs, we're going to feel better on those in the first half of our cycle when we metabolize them better. Right now, the same meal might send us way out of balance in the luteal phase. So more protein and healthy fats in general, less carbs in general are going to help. And just in general, the luteal phase is a time where we really want to focus on warming foods. So in the first half of our cycle, we might really thrive on like big crunchy salads and like smoothies and juice. In the second half of our cycle, we're really going to want to focus on soups and stews and cooked grains and cooked vegetables, curries, like really warming, easy to digest foods. So really trying to shift the balance on your plate to foods that require less to digest. Crunchy raw vegetables are very taxing to digest in the body and that are going to warm and balance our energy from within. And then lastly, two herbs that I really love for the luteal phase are maca, which we've now talked about with all three questions. This is a common theme. So I guess everyone listening today needs to start on some maca. And Vitex, chaste tree berry, which is the same herb I mentioned back when we were talking about trying to conceive and fertility. These are really, really powerful for PMS symptoms and hormone balancing in the luteal phase, the second half. And if you're having exhaustion and mood swings during your period, we don't actually just need to look at the period. We need to look at the luteal phase the couple weeks before the period starts. So limit caffeine and alcohol, be mindful of carbs, lots more protein and healthy fats, warming foods, maca, and Vitex are all going to be really supportive for you. Now, let's talk about the period itself, because that's what you actually asked about. Really, the best thing you can do during your bleed nutritionally is Get plenty of protein, high protein foods, and iron-rich foods. Iron is a really big support for our energy production in our cells, and we are losing iron every single day that we're bleeding. So replenishing our iron every day through our food is going to help our energy and our hormones, which means also our moods. So leafy greens, pumpkin seeds, liver is a big one, red meat in general, like having these iron-rich foods every single day. Lentils are an amazing source of iron. Eating lentils every day. So really focusing on iron-rich foods and protein in your bleed itself. And then the last thing I want to say about this is I really find that we feel exhausted and moody, like resentful, irritable, mood swings when we're bleeding because we are out of alignment with the natural ebbs and flows of our energy in this phase. We are expecting ourselves to show up as though we were in like an inner spring or an inner summer. We expect ourselves to show up with lots of bubbly social energy, with lots of productivity, with like from we wake up to the time we go to bed, we are doing and producing. And if we're not doing that, something's wrong with my energy. And the reality is that while we are on the bleed, this is our inner winter. So we do want to do all of these things I just talked about to support our hormones, to support our energy and our balance. But another piece of this puzzle for you might actually be adjusting your expectations for the bleed itself and building in more alignment and more space to honor the truth, to honor the reality of the phase of your cycle that you're in. Like, what if this wasn't a problem to solve? What if the thing to work on was actually the external environment needing to be more responsive and more respectful of the natural ebbs and flows of your energy? It is really normal and natural to slow down while we are on our bleed, to feel more introverted. So if we are in a job or if we are parenting in a way that requires us to show up externally, to be in team working meetings all day, to be constantly working on the house all day. And if we don't give ourselves any flexibility to slow down and rest and be alone, of course we're going to feel resentful and irritable. Of course we're going to feel exhausted and depleted. And that may not be a fault of the body. That may potentially be a misalignment in the life, in the external systems and schedules. So if you want to learn more about this, I do have a workshop available that you can get instant access to that is all about how I plan in advance my months to align with this energy of my menstrual cycle. It is a really powerful strategy that I use myself and started teaching my clients to use, and they have just loved having this structure. It's like a scheduling system, kind of, so that you know what to expect for your energy at each phase of your cycle, and you have plans in place in advance to honor and respond to what's true and what's real and what is a natural part of living in a cyclical body. So I will leave the link in the show note to that menstrual mapping workshop. It is such a great resource. It's only $17. It's going to be just completely life-changing for your schedule and for your expectations of yourself. It's really, really great. And in the meantime, start with the nutrition and herb things that we talked about as well to support the luteal phase balance. All right, my loves, that was so fun. I can't wait to do another Q&A episode with you next month. So I will leave the link to the form in the show notes below this video. So please check out that form. Throw me any questions you've got about nutrition, self-care and motherhood, nervous system healing, cycle syncing, hormones, energy. Let me know what's on your mind that you want me to answer on the podcast. You can use that form below or send me a DM over on Instagram and I will get your question added to next month's episode. And then lastly, if you found this episode helpful or if you are enjoying this space, please make sure to like, subscribe, share this episode with other moms, all the things. It really helps new podcasts get visible and get into the hands and ears of everyone who really needs this medicine. So share the love, subscribe and like and comment and all the things. I so appreciate you being here and being part of this community. So Until we meet again, my love, take beautiful care of yourself.